for helping us put together this, again, digital marketing lunch and learn webinar series. This is part two, so thank you guys so much for joining. And I'm just real quickly going to hand things over to our friend Robert Levine at HSMAI.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jen. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I just want to remind everyone that our industry is complex, and at HSMAI, we help to connect those dots. The Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International is committed to growing businesses for hotels and their partners, and is the industry's leading advocate for intelligent, sustainable hotel revenue growth. The association provides hotel professionals and their partners with tools, insights, and expertise to fuel sales, inspire marketing, and optimize revenue. Here locally, we have over 200 members. Some of the perks of being a member of HSMAI South Florida are displayed here on the screen. If you're interested in becoming a member, please visit hsmai.org to become a member. We'd be thrilled to have you as a member of our South Florida chapter. And because we believe today's students are tomorrow's trailblazers and innovators, our chapter awards scholarship to select individuals across South Florida throughout the year, including those seeking bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. To learn more, I want to direct your attention to www.hsmaisouthflorida.org, and you can click on the student section. We've got some scholarships that we're going to be giving away in October, so I'd encourage anybody that's actively seeking a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree to go in and search for our scholarships. And there's a number of ways that you can support the scholarship program. We're actively seeking monetary donations or gifts that we can raffle off at our gala in October. If you're interested in doing that, please send me an email or somebody else on our team. Reach out or put a message in the chat. My email is robert@comops.com. And let me turn it back over to Jen to get our presentation going today.
Thanks, Robert. As I mentioned, my name is Jen Kelfie. I am an account executive at Vizergy Digital Marketing. So I'm very excited that you guys were able to join us here for our webinar Wednesdays. Part two is focused on SEO fundamentals. So we've got some best practices for search engine visibility for you today, and that is going to be presented to you by my amazing colleague, Trish Layton. And I will let her speak for herself because my goodness, she is wonderful and you will learn a lot. So Trish, over to you.
Well, thanks, Jen. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. As Jen mentioned, my name is Trish. I am the Senior Manager of Search at Vizergy. I've been here about 7 years, or well, exactly 7 years. Today is my 7-year anniversary. I've been working in SEO for a little over a decade now. And previously, long before that, I worked in hospitality and hotel management in New York City for the Fitzpatrick Hotel Group. So this job lets me kind of stay within the hospitality realm that I love and also marry that with like digital marketing, which I'm kind of obsessed with. So thank you for joining. I hope you guys get a lot out of the session.
Hey, Trish, I'm going to interrupt you because I forgot to say something really important before we start. If anybody has any questions for Trish while we go through this presentation, since she will be covering so much information, please go ahead and put it in the chat or the Q&A section below on your screen. As I mentioned, I will be moderating that. So any questions, we will make sure that we have time to cover at the end. So please get those questions out there in that chat and we'll make sure we get as many answered as we can. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. If you are not familiar with Vizergy or if you're joining the webinar series for the first time, just want to give you a little bit of background about who we are. We've been in business for about 25 years, offering different kinds of solutions for people in the hospitality space, like website design, digital marketing, booking engine services, distribution services as well. We have clients in 48 of the 50 states, as well as Canada, Mexico, the Caribbean, Europe, and Asia. And we are very lucky to call just over 1,700 hotels, restaurants, and casinos clients of ours that we appreciate and love dearly. So that's just a little bit about us. Let's go over kind of what I'll be talking about today, because we're going to talk about some SEO fundamentals. I'm going to keep this mainly related to the hospitality industry specifically, of course. There's a lot of stuff I could really be talking about, for hours and hours, but we have pretty limited time today. So I'm going to keep it a little bit high level, but then hopefully we'll have like some good time at the end for Q&A. So if there's anything you want me to kind of go into more detail about, any of the topics I touch on, please go ahead and hit that Q&A button and submit your questions, and we'll be able to go through some stuff a little bit more detailed later. We're going to go over on-page SEO, some best practices, and these are the things that you do, to optimize your actual website for search engines and users. So those are things like keyword strategy, your content, some technical elements of your website. And also we'll talk about some off-page SEO tactics and best practices. And that's like what you refer to all the efforts you put into other online assets, outside of your website to help boost your visibility. And those kinds of things we're going to go over is your UNAP consistency, backlink profile, and your online presence overall. And then I'm going to discuss a couple things that don't kind of fit perfectly into on-page or off-page, that we'll just call SEO puri. Just a few kind of things that are prevalent in our industry or SEO related that I just want to go over with you guys today. So let's get started with on-page SEO. This is typically what most people think SEO is, which makes sense because it's kind of where good SEO starts. And at the core of that lies your keyword strategy. I'm sure you're all familiar with this booking funnel here. Most hotels, I think, when you ask what they want to rank for, it's going to be those like really heavily searched and competitive terms that pop into your mind. Like a hotel in Brooklyn, for example, is always going to say they want to be page 1 for hotels in Brooklyn. So it makes sense, logically, but what I want to do is shift how people think about what they want to get out of what they're ranking for. Your jobs are probably to drive, booking revenue for the hotel. That's also my job. And what I know is that people searching for hotels in Brooklyn are not ready to book yet. So the conversion funnel here really matters when you're coming up with a good keyword strategy. Sort of the kinds of terms you want to make sure you include really vary and hit every sort of point in this keyword funnel. Things like hotel in Brooklyn, like I said, hotel in downtown Brooklyn, they're going to be more top. They speak to kind of the research, and then it kind of goes down to these more specific, longer tailed keywords like pet friendly hotel near Barclays Center. These ones down here are going to have a lot less search volume. They're going to be a lot less competitive though, and they indicate that the person is ready to book. So the terms that kind of hit this part of the funnel are super valuable to have visibility for and should not be ignored just because they don't have as much search volume as hotel in Brooklyn. Google's done a lot in recent years to decipher the searcher's intent behind any query. So this is a really important concept to get comfortable with. I'm going to use the word intent probably about 100 times today because it's not about the words really. It's what's the intention behind them and what are they going to do with the information once they get it. Oops, sorry, let's stay on that for another minute. So we want to make sure we understand what the search is really doing when they put in a query like that. Google's done a lot to decipher the intent, like I said. The intent signals for terms down here are very different. That mean they're ready to convert. So the search results for terms that are down here in the funnel are going to be different than the ones that are going to be up here because the intent is going to have to match the results. If you think about, you've probably searched, these high mark keywords a lot before, and think about what actually does show up on page 1 for those big heavy hitting terms. It's mainly OTAs. So these are like the organic results below the map. There's never really a hotel website here unless it's like a tiny market and there just aren't that many other options. For the most part, Google is going to be showing OTAs. And when you think about it, it should. The intent is to research. They're in the top part of the funnel. So OTAs are like these mini search engines that are great for doing that. So it makes total sense that this is the result. They match. So yes, the searcher is looking for a hotel in Brooklyn, but they kind of have a lot of work to do before they land on a specific one. So while it would be like a great bragging moment to say like, hey, rank page 1 for hotels in Brooklyn, it's not likely to really impact your bottom line. So your best strategy here is to be visible on the entities that are on page 1. So sort of like if you can't beat them, join them. So make sure your OTA listings are top notch. So just be visible on what's visible if we can't be there ourselves, right? The last part about creating your keyword strategy is relevance. This matters big time. So your actual location is probably the most important ranking factor for those location searches. Google absolutely knows where you are. You can't trick them. They have pictures of your roof. They probably know the names of like your front desk staff. So you can like fill your content to the brim with targets that you want to rank for, but you have to be relevant to it to actually get anywhere. It's like trying to rank for the city you're kind of in, but you're actually in the suburb. It's just not really going to work because Google doesn't think you're relevant. So you're not going to get shown, right? And as a searcher, that makes sense because you're not going to convert anyway. If you're looking for a hotel in downtown Atlanta and you see a hotel in Buckhead in the results, you're probably not going to book it. So what's the point? It's just kind of a wasted effort there. So this is kind of a good example I wanted to pull. When I search for like hotels near Barclays Center, Google is showing me the map area, what they think is near Barclays Center, which is right here. So anywhere in this map result is pretty much fair game. Like they can rank for that demand generator, but this is what, like maybe a mile and a half, 2 square miles. I mean, this is kind of an extreme example because it's New York City, so it's a little bit more saturated, but you know, a hotel half a mile on either side, it's still close. And, you know, by our standards, we think that we're near it, but Google just doesn't think it's near enough. And there are better options that are going to outrank you if you're not in this map area. So one thing I do like to do when I'm coming up with like good location terms for a keyword strategy is to just Google it myself in incognito so that my results aren't skewed by like previous search history. And look at what's on the map. If your property falls in that map area, it's awesome, game on. Or like even really close is fine too. But if you're a couple miles outside of the map, it might not be your best option, or it's not your best option, not might not. And maybe there's just some better things to target in that regard. All right. So once you have kind of a keyword theme set, your location targets, you know, you're representing like the whole funnel as it is, how do you effectively rank for these keywords? We can't just magically get your site ranking for things or like, oh, optimize my site for this or this or this. What does that mean? You know, we're not calling Google and be like, hey, can you rank this person for this? Does not happen. I wish. You absolutely have to have good content to support your keyword themes and to get ranking for them. So there's a couple golden rules that we like to follow for sort of like SEO writing or SEO content is write for the visitor, not for Google. So this means make sure your content's really informative, it's organized, and it's highly readable. So used to be able to stuff a keyword in 47 times in a paragraph and it would get you ranking for it. Those days are long, long gone. That's not user-friendly. It sounds clunky. Google doesn't like it either. It's like a trick that they just don't respond to anymore. And chances are Google's only really scanning the first like a little bit of content anyway. So at that point, you're trying to win over the visitor, not the search engine. So write for the visitor first. The next tip here is to have a logical structure. So use your target themes on like one relevant page. We don't want to see 7 pages of copy created trying to rank for one thing. It doesn't work because you'll never see all 7 of those pages one after the other in a search result anyway. And it just doesn't happen. It's not the way Google likes to see if a site is relevant for a particular theme. The only caveat to that, I think, is really the homepage. You can get broad and varied with your content there, and you should, like mentioning your amenities, maybe some room details, highlights of the location that can all live on your homepage because that's your power page for ranking anyway. But keep like the more detailed room content on the rooms page. Don't talk about area activities on the amenities page and on the event venue page. Like it needs to be really organized and make sense, logical. That's what works. Next is our lovely friend AI. A lot of people want to use AI to write content, and I totally get it because it writes pretty good content. It makes your jobs a lot easier. You're busy running your, properties. Use it as a tool, but don't let it do the heavy lifting. It's great to like get ideas to improve something you've written yourself or to ask for like certain topics you might want to include in your site or write about. But don't like have it write a blog post about summer activities in your town and then copy and paste and publish it word for word. Human touch here is really non-negotiable in the content. Just like spitting out AI content does not help anybody. I promise. We got asked a lot about blogs when we did our in-person boot camp in Miami in May, if any of you guys were there. So I just wanted to mention it because it's obviously a topic of interest for people, and blogs are great tools, right? They're not likely to outrank a more robust and authoritative travel website, though, for any topics you're writing about. However, since Google is using like AI to serve up better results lately, and they're looking for a wider variety of information sources, I am seeing some of these smaller website blogs show up in search results if their content is matching the query really nicely. So by all means do it. Use it to enhance your visitors' opinion of your property, give them ideas, help them see themselves there. It can be a really nice conversion tool. But if you're going to have it, you have to invest the time into it. There's no point in having it if you have old stale content. It's not going to help you. By all means, if you don't, commit, you say, I don't have time to commit to a blog and you don't have one, it's okay. You're not at a disadvantage either. So really it's a personal preference there. If you have it, keep it up to date. Don't use AI to write all your content. Make sure you have that personal touch and keep up with it. All right. The last part of on-page SEO I wanted to talk about was technical SEO. So this is usually where people kind of start to yawn and I lose them. So I'll go really, really quickly, and I'm just going to talk about the 3 heavy hitters in technical SEO. I guess the easiest way to explain technical SEO is that most of the stuff we're doing or that I talk about, we can see on your website, it's for the user. Technical SEO is literally for robots, just for robots. It's for their Google crawler bots. So making sure we make them happy. And a lot of times people can't see any of these technical elements. It's all done on the back end. First one I want to discuss is schema markup. Schema, if you have not heard of it, it's a language that the search engines came up with, and it helps their crawlers determine kind of like in a microsecond what the page is actually about. And they only have to go through a couple lines of code instead of a bunch of content to determine and give it context. Like I said, it's a robot, so it doesn't understand branded language or puns or jokes or anything like that. So this is really just the Cliffs Notes version that it'll help them categorize and add context to your content. And there's different markup language for every page, that you can have on your site. Like the home page will have one thing, your restaurant page would have something else, your event venue page would have something else to help define it. And with that, you also have the chance to show in search results with what we call rich snippets. And you've probably seen them before. They're like the larger search result that has review stars, price range, things like that. Maybe some images or 2 different indented results under it. So those have a positive impact on your click-through rate from search results. So it's great to have those. And there's really not any great way to guarantee you can get those, but schema markup is your best bet to get that. Another big one is image alt text. Also, people call them alt tags, whatever, text tags, same thing. These are an ADA requirement. So if you were at last week's webinar with Jeremiah, you learned all about ADA requirements for your website, and this is a part of it. But this is also great for SEO because Google's going to use these alt tags or text to help them define the subject matter of the page as a whole, because you're probably putting images related to the content, right? You're not going to put a picture of a dog if it's content about going sailing, so they'll use it actually to add context as well. It's if a visually impaired person is using a screen reader, that's what gets read aloud to them to kind of describe the image. So you have to think of the Google robot the same way. They can't actually see images. They don't know what it is in the picture. So they use that alt text to help define it. With search results getting more media heavy with imagery, videos and stuff like that, this will help in that regard too. Also, if you, want to have any of your images show up in image search results, you need the alt text. So make sure you don't miss out on that. And lastly is internal linking. This is vital. So, and this people kind of can see, it's for both the robots and the peoples. You likely have a website that's laid out really logically right now. So you have your home page and then you have your category pages that live under it, like your rooms, your restaurants, your event space, something like that. And then any sub pages related to those categories live underneath. So in a nice, neat structure. Users probably find these pages through your main navigation menu. Google does not simulate the behavior of a user and it does not crawl your menu. So you have to say, how are they going to find these pages if that menu didn't exist? You have to use internal links. So your homepage needs to have links to the next level down, your category pages. Your category page has to have links to the individual pages below it. That's how Google's going to find them. They're going to follow those links. It's basically mapping it out for them. If they can't find it, it never gets indexed and it doesn't exist. So this is a really important element when you're building a website, putting in the content, and it can be like a link in the text or, in the content, a CTA, an image, anything like that. It's just going to follow the links. So you just want to make sure it can find and index all the pages in your site. All right, and that takes us to off-page SEO, the fun stuff. Well, it's all fun stuff for me because I'm a nerd. We went over all the ways you can use your website to gain visibility and rank on Google, but obviously that's just about half the battle. Google gathers its understanding about your business and your website from so many other sources, like outside of the things that you can control directly on your website. One of the ways it verifies your location and data is through aggregators or like directories. So that's places like Foursquare, Yelp, Yellow Pages, TripAdvisor, etc. So this whole part of SEO that I'm kind of talking about here is called local SEO, in case you hear that. So through online directories and your own Google business profile, your contact information absolutely has to be consistent and accurate throughout all of it. Google is pulling this information and it all has to match. You're aiming for UNAP consistency here. And UNAP is, if you don't know, stands for URL, name, address, and phone number. Obviously the cornerstone of your contact information. Variations in this data causes a lack of confidence. Google will not show results if they're not confident that the information they're providing is accurate. They're very sensitive that way. If your phone number is one way on one listing and it's listed differently somewhere else, that's not great. As a user, I'd be like, well, which one is it? Do they not know their own phone number? That's a little weird. Google kind of, without its feelings, behaves the same way. This is really important for those near me searches too, that everyone thinks we can optimize for, and we absolutely cannot optimize for it. That's based solely on the searcher's location and your location. And if Google is having any sort of lack of confidence in your location and contact details, guess who's not getting shown in the results for those. So make sure that is absolutely accurate across the board. We use a great tool called Yext, in case anybody's like, how do I deal with this? If you have an SEO agency, they probably are taking care of this. You can make sure like we have it included in our service. But there are like third-party services that can lock down your information and make sure it's accurate throughout, because nobody has time to go finding all of their listings and like claiming them and making sure the details are correct and then going looking again the next month and then the next month, because they can change and degrade at any time. So using a third party for that stuff is really, really helpful. You can control everything in one place, make a change, it pushes stuff out automatically. If you recently did or are about to go through like a rebrand, or like you're changing your flag, like something like that, this is absolutely vital. Do not skip this part. Because you have to have your new name and new brand associated with all the other details that live in the internet and have been for so long. I have like a local pizza place that I love, and they changed owners and their name. So I just kind of like wanted to see, like, did they do their due diligence? Because maybe I'll get some free pizza if I help them. I don't know, why not? And like problem. So if I see something like this, when we get a client, I say, oh, thank God you found us. There's one instance of it being an accurate name on Yelp. Everything else is different. This was the last owner. This was 2 places ago. So nobody seems to really care. They don't have a Facebook profile at all. So this kind of stuff is really important. If you want to have any sort of local presence or show up for local based searches. The other thing to be very, I guess, on top of is your Google business profile. So Google is going to look to their own properties, obviously, to get information about you, and they own this arena. Make sure you are the owner or a manager of it, you have access to it, and it's a verified listing. People can suggest edits to these all day long, and it requires your intervention to check on it and like take action on anything that people try to change. This is the first place also people generally go if they do a branded search. You get your organic results and you paid maybe, but that whole right side of the page, boom, it's right there. A lot of people's eyes go to the right, and this is where they're looking when they do branded searches. This is where all your vital information lives. It has to match the rest of the internet. Also, people don't book hotels without looking at pictures and reviews from other people who stayed there before, not on your website, from real people. So you want to make sure that you are managing this information, checking on it, making sure your photos are up to date. Also, your hotel details accurate. Anything wrong here, you got to take care of it. You can respond to reviews. People can ask questions here, and then Random Joe Q Public can answer it, and it might be the wrong answer. So making sure the accurate information is out there is really important. So always check on your Google business profile, make sure you know the logins, how to get to it, and how to manage it. There's a lot of information within the listing. So when you do have access to your, when you do have access to your Google business profile, I'm going to show you some places where you need to go and why. So I did like a test search resorts in Orlando, right? So I get all sorts of information here on this big map. I can zoom in, zoom out, whatever. Obviously, there's a lot of competition here. People are more often than not using some of these filters up here to narrow down these wild amount of searches. Like, how do we go through all this and decide what we need? If you look up here, there's an amenities section, and people can say, oh, I want a place with a pool or a spa or a bar, and then it just narrows that down significantly. So you need to make sure your amenities are up to date on your listing. So how do you find that? I will show you. Log into your profile, hit up these hotel details right here, and you've got all these lists up on the side. So sustainability, if you have internet, your food and bev options, room features, are you pet friendly? What kind of pools do you have? So make sure this is accurate, because if you don't have this information, you're going to miss out from any traffic of people using the filters to search. And there's no point in missing out. So if your data is wrong or it doesn't exist, you can lose out on some revenue, and it does not take long. Just check in, like set aside a couple minutes every week and just check in on your listings and make sure they're good to go. All right, so let's go back to my next topic. It is backlinks. We'll probably get a lot of questions about this because a lot of people don't think they really have to monitor their backlinks very well, or you might be asking, what is a backlink? So I'll start there. Backlinks are links from other websites to yours. And the reason search engines like Google care about your backlinks is you're pretty much judged by the company you keep or by your friends. The backlink is like a friend or a vote of confidence that your business and your website is legit and it has authority and it's relevant to whatever their site is about. The power of backlinks, however, has changed a bit over time. It used to be that the number of backlinks was the winner. So if you had a whole bunch of backlinks, it would help you rank. It's not about that anymore. It's about the quality of the backlinks that you have, not just the number. You used to be able to pay a couple $100 to a backlink purchasing service. They'd go out and buy a bunch of garbage links from sites that nobody ever visited and be like, look, I got you 1,000 backlinks. And there was a time where that would actually help you increase in rankings, but that is obviously no longer the case, and thankfully, because that didn't do anything for anybody. Buying backlinks now can get you penalized. It's against Google's best practices and guidelines. So if you're buying backlinks and they kind of find out about it, there are signals where they can kind of tell. Your website can literally disappear. So it's not worth it. Please don't buy backlinks ever. So it's really about the quality. So the authority of the backlink website was pretty much what drove us the most for the last maybe 5 or 6, could be almost 10 years now. A backlink from a website that had a lot of authority was really valuable because it passes that authority to your website. So we were all just looking for these super high authority domains, hey, can we get a link from Forbes.com or see, we were looking for those big heavy hitters. But what's come to light pretty recently is that while that's all well and good, the links that really carry weight and are powerful are the ones that people are actually clicking on, that are bringing traffic to your website. So for an example, I'm using travelandleisure.com. It would be super great to have a link from them. Like they did a story about your area, mentioned you as a great place to stay. They linked, bring traffic, super. They have a high domain authority. So that's on a scale of 1 to 100, how important they are in the entire internet. So they have a really high authority metric. But you also have a link from the local zoo because you're near there and they want to have an accommodations page. If this zoo link gets clicked on and people actually visit from there, it is so much more powerful than this travelandleisure.com link that maybe nobody's clicking on, and it's bringing a lot more value. So the point is, you want to make sure you find links that actually are relevant to you and that people are going to click on. Don't think about just authority, but think about things like what's actually going to be useful to a visitor and make them come to my site and potentially convert. So that being said, where do you look? Because if you have to go looking for backlinks, you might be like, well, how do I do that? So there's a couple of sort of, I guess, safe bets you can always count on. If you look for, I guess, the things that bring people to your city that may need accommodations, like those local attractions, those tourist spots, like why do people visit the area? If you check the sites of those places, a lot of them have hotel pages or like local accommodations pages and lists and links, you know, to the different areas they can stay in and hotels. So that's a really good place to start. Your local tourism bureau, the city website, they generally all have accommodation pages as well. So any site that targets the visitors who are coming to your area who need hotels is a great idea. Universities is also really good because they tend to have a ton of authority and get traffic, so you kind of get both of them there. And then another good tactic is to run a competitor gap analysis. Like we like to do this for our clients is you take, you know, your two best digital competitors and run a report in like SEMrush or Ahrefs and see what links do they have that my site does not have. You can usually find a couple of pretty good options in there and things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, like niche sites or travel, you know, things that like you wouldn't just be top of mind. So it's a nice way to get a couple of ideas of things like backlinks that you can try to reach out and get yourself. All right. Social, what? Are you trying to interrupt? Sorry.
Yes, I do. I have a question before you move on to social media.
Sure.
We've got a question from the audience. What is the difference between backlinks and referral links?
There really is no difference. So referral links is just referring traffic to your website. So the referral is a backlink.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right. So I want to talk about social media for a moment. A couple years ago, if you asked me if like social media was part of off-page SEO, I would have said no. But it is something that we have to think about in our industry. Obviously, travel is experiential, it's visual. Think about how people are searching for travel and what makes them convert and how it helps them find you. You have to put yourself in the searcher's shoes and cover all aspects. Like everywhere they're looking, you need to be there. I was chatting to a slightly younger coworker recently who just basically kind of informed me, like, I never book a hotel until I look at their social media page. I want to see, are they posting? What do the pictures look like? Is my Instagram feed going to look super cool if I stay there? So this is how people are searching. So they're not going to book it on through Instagram at that point, but then they're going to go back and do a branded search and likely get to you through the natural search channel that way. So it is feeding into the natural search funnel. So make sure that you have a social media site that's active. You know, posting not just images and selling things in your rooms, but like some fun things like the melting pot, like has a quiz of like, what kind of double dipper are you? Things that are fun and kitschy and cute. Obviously people having fun, your food and drinks, like scenery. Like I said, people have to envision themselves there. And if they can't see other people there, literally, it's going to be a hard sell for them. So make sure this is active. You have someone monitoring your social media, posting, coming up with really cool content. If you are joining our webinar next week with my brilliant coworker, Anna, she's going to talk about paid media. So she'll touch on a couple of things to like use the paid channel through social media. So she's going to have some really good insight there as well. But obviously there's a lot you can do organically with social media without paying for it too. So definitely don't ignore social media. And that brings us to my SEO pari, the things that I don't know how to categorize. So, but are really important. There's a lot of themes that I'm going to talk about here that I get a lot of questions people ask me over and over. So I do want to talk about a couple of those items. The first one is, What makes a website rank on Google? I hear that a lot, and that is a super hard question to answer because there are thousands of ranking factors in the great Google algorithm. Some of them we can control and some of them we can't. So the things that we can control that help, like website structure, content, your backlinks, I've already talked about these. We want to make sure those are all on point, but there are some things that are beyond our control that you can get stuck on, or it can be hindering you and you don't know why, but we just want to touch on that real quick. Your location. I think I've mentioned it once or twice by now, that where your pile of bricks stands on the sidewalk is very important to Google. So I'm just going to say that again and convey it. Obviously, we can't change your location, so it's out of our control, vitally important. The other thing is the age of your domain name. So your actual .com and how long that's been around matters as a ranking factor. Being well established carries a little bit of weight, especially when like those spam sites and malicious sites that nobody likes, they tend to just pop up and go away just as fast. They don't have any activity or history behind them. So Google puts more value in the age of your domain because it's like a signal that you're legit. User behavior, I put an ish behind it because it's kind of both sides of the fence. I mean, we can indirectly impact, but not really control that. So things like how long someone spends on your website, how many pages they visit, if they convert, those are all signals to Google whether or not your site was a relevant and useful result for a query. If you're appearing high up for something, say like boutique hotels near the Empire State Building, but for whatever reason, people who click on that result, they bounce after a few seconds, or they're not looking any further, they're not converting, that kind of signals to Google that that's not a really great result for them for whatever reason. So you're not going to be showing up as high anymore. And that could be just because like a bunch of people are allergic to dogs and there's a picture of a dog on your homepage saying that you're pet friendly. So it's not like we can control that, those little nuances. So it's ish. We do what we can to impact behavior, but we can't control every aspect of it. Also, your competition. We can't control what others in the market are doing, obviously. If 5 more hotels are popping up in your neighborhood next year, it's more competitive. That's less chance for you to take up that landscape, right? If someone's always outranking you and it's driving you nuts, but they have an older domain name, they're doing great SEO, great social, good content, they might just continue to outrank you because that other thing they have that you don't is a slightly older domain, or they're a quarter of a mile closer to a location target you're trying to rank for. So we can't undo progress that other people are doing. That is out of our control. And of course, Google's rules. We have to play nice in their sandbox. So we may not always like that they put so much weight into things that we can't impact as much, but there is a method to the madness and we kind of have to trust it. We had a client a few years back who was on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River, but literally you could throw something at Manhattan and reachable. The river's not that small, but so close. And she would say, like, we have so many people who come to stay with us who are visiting New York City. They tell me this. I know this. But Google does not rank her for hotels near New York City because they don't think she's relevant, even though the people literally physically in her hotel telling her to her face that that's why they're there. We have to play by their rules, unfortunately. We can't change that of them, even though it's frustrating sometimes. There's very little that's in our hands in that regard when Google determines if something is relevant or not. So we just do our best. Oh, there's one more thing here. I swear it's going to be on my headstone because I say this so much, and anybody from Vizergy is laughing right now if you're hearing this because they're sick of me saying it. SEO does not create demand. What this means is that there's nothing that an SEO analyst can do to make someone think, oh, I want to look into taking a vacation in Aruba. That's for commercials, social media ads, like actual demand generating tactics where you're putting the thought in their head. SEO responds to demand. So the people searching for it, when they're doing that, we just have to make sure we're visible, but we can't control how many people are searching for something at any given time. So our role is just to make sure you're there when that demand comes. Your organic search performance is going to ebb and flow with this demand, sort of like your seasonal, like you're going to get more traffic some months, lower months, like what have you. It's the same for traffic from Google. So if 100 people search for something in June and only 50 people search for that same thing in July, you have half as many opportunities to show up and get clicks for that same thing. And there's nothing that we can do or, have done to impact that. It just follows demand. It's the nature of the game. One thing I do, there's a great tool. Oh, there it goes, highlighted again. A great tool we love to look at is Google Trends. So it's super fun to play in, just like it's like trends.google.com or something. You can put in any search term here and like a time frame. You can do a comparison year over year like I did here and filter my dates. But this sort of tells you like the high and low times where the search demand was. This number isn't the actual number of searches. It's just an arbitrary scale they put up to say like, hey, the search interest, the number of times people have searched for this term was highest here. It was lowest here. So like hotels in Lake Tahoe. So this was like, I don't have the dates here, but like summer, obviously they're high season. People want to go travel to Lake Tahoe in the summer. The fall, it gets pretty low. There's an uptick over like Christmas time, low again, then up in their high season. Their natural search traffic is 100% going to follow this ebb and flow as well. And there's nothing wrong. I did a year over year comparison just to highlight like this time frame last year, there was a 17% higher interest of demand of this term. So this year, if they're looking at year over year data and they're like, oh my gosh, there was a 15% drop in our organic traffic, like who do I have to fire? You're not doing your jobs, blah, blah, blah. It's not always a bad thing. So when you're looking at your data, or if you have to like, put a presentation together for the powers that be, the people that write your paycheck, seeing something in the negative or in the red regarding organic search traffic isn't necessarily a bad thing. Doesn't mean anybody's not doing their job well. It just means that demand might have changed and we only respond to it. We can't make it, we can't increase demand at all. So you can use this to do brand searches as well, which is really cool. To like brand terms, it's usually really telling for the ebbs and flows in that regard. All right. Last piece, search generative experience, or SGE. I kind of went back and forth if I wanted to include this because this is very meaty. I mean, we may have to do another webinar for this entirely, but I do have to just mention it. I wouldn't be doing my job if I ignored it. So SGE it's really like an enhancement to how search results are presented. You might have noticed some changes in your search results over the last like several months. It's using AI and machine learning to generate like a more comprehensive result than we're used to. They're like going to be more detailed. They give more than the searcher asked for based on their intent, right? So if someone's looking for a hotel in Orlando, you're also probably going to get like the prices of the theme parks, travel tips, the weather for that time of year, something like that. And those results are going to be catered to you based on your own history and related sites you visited in the past or hotel price ranges that you tend to book. So if you're someone who only stays at like 4 or 5 star properties, you're probably not going to see like a Best Western in your results. So it's trying to make it a better user experience for you. So it's just a little bit more enhanced. It's a little bit different. It's got a lot more stuff to it than our general, like, okay, here's our paid ads, here's our map, here's our organic results down below it. So people are getting kind of a kerfuffle about it. They're like, what's happening? But it's supposed to give you a better experience. Like I did a best time of year to visit Ireland just to see. So this AI overview rolled out in May. So the past couple of months, you've probably seen this. It's just giving me more information, right? Telling me, exactly what I asked and some additional benefits, or why is this a good season, or why is this a good time of year? And then a couple of results for where they pulled that information from. Here are the websites we learned that from. So that's why this is where you can get some good visibility with like good blog content. But it's just different than what we're used to. So the thing that we have to kind of keep track of is the impact this is having in natural search results. It's not a ton, but we are seeing more 0-click results. So what that means is someone's not actually clicking on any of the website results there. They instead like start a new search, or they're finding what they're looking for right in front of them. They don't have to go any further. They got the answer. That's kind of one of the points that Google's trying to make. There was a recent study from Search Engine Land that 60% of results are now 0-click. So, and that very well might be true. But what this study does not do is separate out the average by the industry. And I don't believe in any way that travel and tourism is seeing that significant of a drop in like actual click results. So while you may see a small dip because they're getting information right in front of them, they would have had to go to your website too previously, like your checkout time, or if you're pet friendly or something like that, or if you have like joined rooms. I don't think it's going to be felt as strongly by hotel websites. You might have noticed that what the example I showed you was sort of like generic travel information. Who may feel this a little bit more strongly is OTAs or travel information websites that might have see a slightly bigger dip in organic traffic or in the more like zero click searches because they're getting the information without having to click on anything. But again, those are much higher level. Those are the research terms. So the research intent is where we're seeing this the most, not really those converting long-tailed keyword terms that are actually showing hotels in the results. So I don't think we're going to see as big of an impact as other industries are. So the point is, don't panic. We got you. Basically, everything that I talked about today is gonna set you up for success in like whatever the search landscape looks like as they move forward with this. And like the bottom line is just do good SEO and like you'll be fine. Thank you for my Trish talk. And that's kind of the end of what I can talk to you about because we're almost out of time and I want to make sure I have room for some questions. So that is it. Jen, what do we got? Who can I
You have answered the question that came through, so I will give it a minute and see if anyone else has any that they think of now that you've kind of wrapped your spiel. I said I was going to throw
Okay.
that word in here.
The spiel. Love the spiel.
The spiel. All right, question here. Do you have any suggestions for those going through a rebrand? Since I know you mentioned the importance of the domain age.
Absolutely. So there should really be like a checklist of items that you have to consider from an SEO perspective and your online visibility. I mentioned before about the local. So you've got to get on board with like a third party like Yext or your SEO agency or marketing agency to help with that, to make sure your UNAP is in line with your new brand moving forward. Those properties have to be consistent. Make sure all of your OTA listings are consistent. Like Google the old name, find all the instances where it's being mentioned, talked about, see which ones that you can actually impact and change. Make sure the information is accurate, up to date. It's a lot of work on that end, but it is, like I said, it's vital. Another thing to do is to figure out what you're going to do with the old domain name. So if you think about all of the history, all the clicks, all of the conversions that happened on the hotel1.com website, now your hotel2.com, you know, you don't want to lose everything that happened. So if it's in your control, or depending on what kind of rebrand is happening, or if it's like, if you're allowed to keep that old domain, please do and redirect. So a 301 redirect is telling Google like, hey, all of this information, all the backlinks, all the history, all of the old conversions is now living here, and it carries over your domain authority from the old domain. So that's something, if you can get a 301 redirect from the old domain to the new, it's going to help you tremendously, because like I mentioned before, new domains take a while to like rank very well until you kind of have to prove yourself. So you're not gonna, you know, you're gonna get knocked down in ranking for terms that the old domain used to rank for, just because it's a new domain and it kind of has to prove itself. So having that redirect in place is half the battle, because it carries over that old authority and all the backlinks and everything like that. So it kind of, you start from the 50-yard line. So those are the two main things that I'd make sure you have covered, is your UNAP and your domain name plan, like for a redirect if possible. I think other than that, I think that's pretty much the most important.
Awesome. Got another question here. Do we know how AI has impacted search results?
Yes. So what I just went over, the search generative experience, they just look really different. And I know we kind of all myself included, panicked a little bit when Google tried rolling all this stuff out because they're changing things that matter so much to us and to our clients. You know, the natural search channel is one of the biggest revenue drivers. It's one of the biggest traffic drivers for websites, for direct bookings. So they're kind of messing with it and we get a little nervous. So I get it. But truly, we have to kind of sit back and trust the process a little bit from this point because the intent is to give a better experience, not to like screw people out of business. I do, like I said, I think the OTAs are going to feel this a little bit more heavily than, you know, an average hotel website, but there is less opportunity for organic results to show. So we're kind of fighting and fighting for our space in the results. So it's going to be harder to get organic rankings at this point. But that being said, since it's really impacting more the research phase, we're hoping that the bottom funnel searches or those ones that happen later or closer to the conversion time are not going to see that big of an issue. I mean, it's supposed to be a good thing. I don't know if I like it yet, like seeing the overviews when I do searches for things. It's kind of more stuff I have to scroll past. So I'm not fully on board yet, but I think we have to wait and see a little bit and just kind of trust that Google knows what they're doing. But it makes our jobs a little harder.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, another great question here. So when
Mhm.
implementing new SEO strategy, how long should we expect to see results? How
Oh,
frequently should we be updating strategy?
yeah, that's a really great question. So, you know, we often say SEO is the marathon, paid media is the sprint. It takes a long time to see impact. So if you're, well, depending on a few factors. So if it's again, a new domain, new website, new business, you have no history anywhere else, you're brand new to the game, like starting at the zero now, it can take about 6 months to start seeing any traction for like your campaign, as long as you've picked really good relevant location targets, you've done good SEO work, you're visible off page, you know, you have all of your directory listings and like lockdown. Expect about 6 months, and that's not for the big, heavy competitive terms. That will take at least a year to have some good visibility for. If you're, you know, if you've been around for a while and you just haven't really done SEO before and you just started, that's kind of where you're just refining. You can probably see some results starting at like 3 months if you have a bit of history behind your domain already, and you just needed someone to come in and like clean up your targets and like make sure it's more search engine friendly. We always like to recheck at the 3 month mark. So, you know, every 3 months, we're going to do a full like technical site audit, like performance analysis, like keyword analysis, performance, you know, what are the clicks looking like comparing year over year, and see if there's anything we're missing. And we'll compare it against like some other, you know, online competitors in the area, see like if they're gaining ground on something that we're missing out on. So we really do kind of a full recheck of how effective the campaign is every 3 months. Because again, once it's going, it's going to really take that long to get some traction. What we don't want to do is make a bunch of changes, you know, on the website to try to target another keyword theme better, and then in a week be like, oh, that didn't work. Let's undo it. That doesn't make any sense, or even a month later. So you have to give it some time. So it's definitely a slow game.
Great answer. All right, we got a couple more questions that have come in now. Do we need to have paid and organic strategy, or can we just see good results with SEO?
I generally tell people to do both because they're going to hit different people at different times. So if you really want to make sure you're covering the whole funnel and everybody that you can reach out to and perhaps get the conversion from, you have to do both. So like we talked about, SEO is slow. It takes its time. It just meanders over here in the right lane. You know, if you want some traction or some conversions or attention for specific themes quickly, you have to pay for it. Especially with brand terms. A lot of people don't pay for their own brand, but their competitors do. So it's always kind of a nice way to make sure that you're on top on both regards for your own name, which is really important, where most of your conversions are coming from. So I do like a combined effort, and they both impact each other, right? So I was mentioning before that your organic search performance is going to respond to demand. If you're adding in paid, both of these results are showing up in the same arena. for the same amount of searches. Adding paid is an increasing demand, right? It's just going to likely take away some of your organic traffic. So just keep that in mind. If you start paid, your organic is not tanking. If you see a reduction, you're going to see a plus over here, because they're kind of playing on the same field and competing for the same business. But having your results show up 2 places on a page instead of 1 is just that much better. So I always say do both.
Absolutely.
If you,
Great.
can afford it.
Of
It's
course.
your budget. If you can put the budget into it, it's super effective.
Mhm. Definitely couldn't agree more. Here's another, I just keep saying another great question, but this is a fantastic question. If a business doesn't have a physical address, like a small
Mm.
business online storefront, how does that affect their visibility or Google business profile if UNAP is so important in this respect?
So if they don't have a physical address, it's obviously not going to be as important. So local SEO really refers to the businesses with the bricks, like has an actual storefront. If you just serve certain areas, but you don't have an actual physical location, you just have to have that marked on your Google business profile. Like it asks you when you set it up, like, do we display this address? Or do you just serve locations so you can actually pinpoint the areas that you serve so that if someone in that area is searching for a service like yours, it's like, oh yeah, they serve this area right where the searcher is. So you're going to likely show up in like those map results. Um, those map listings are like gold. I'm sure you guys are used to seeing those when you're looking for something local. So it's okay. Like you wouldn't use a service like Yext if you don't have a brick and mortar storefront. But that Google business profile is still vital, and you don't need to have an actual physical address. You just have to make sure you mark off the areas you're serving.
Awesome. And then a part 2 to that, are they able to rank in the SERP as high as physical stores?
Generally speaking, so I've seen them do that. So it's not like it's a requirement to have a storefront unless it's a certain bit. I mean, unless the business is better for the customer if they can actually go somewhere. But let's just say you're looking for like an HVAC company. If they don't have a storefront, it doesn't mean that they're going to rank lower than someone that actually has a physical location, because who's going into the HVAC office anyway? So no, it wouldn't really matter, and as long as it's a service that people don't physically actually have to go to take advantage of.
Perfect. Thanks. And I know we are just coming up on time, so I've got one last question here in the chat. Do alt tags for images impact SEO performance?
In certain ways. So when I went over them before, I think I mentioned that it will help Google sort of put the content of the page into like a context. So it looks at a bunch of different things to say, what is this page about? It's like your schema markup, some actual like, words on the page. It doesn't crawl that many of them, to be honest. And any images, like what is that alt tag? What is it describing? Does that image fit the content of the page? So it can help in determining like the content and categorize it quickly. But where it's going to come in most is now with like these new search results where they're pulling in images, and then with people doing image searches. If you don't have alt text on your images, that image won't show in search results, and it's not ADA compliant. But one little thing that I have to mention, image alt text does not have to be like 17 keyword phrases. Just describe the image. Like honestly, you can kind of sneak in a location term if you want. So if it's a picture of like, one of your hotel room balconies with a hot tub on it, you can just say like, San Francisco hotel room balcony with hot tubs. So you can kind of sneak it in without seeming like you're stuffing it and it's like unnatural. But yeah, you need to have them in there for sure.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you, Trish, so much. That was a lot of great information, and I know we are just over 1 o'clock. So again, thank you all so much for joining us today for Webinar Wednesdays. We have another session coming up next Wednesday for those who can join us. We look forward to seeing you there. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.